What's good, everybody? Welcome back. Told you we never left. And this is recap for week 5. And we back with our best friend, number one co-host on the space, Nano.
Yes, sir, man. We back at it. You know, we took that little break for good reason, but hey, we back to put in work, man. So stay, keep your eyes and your ears posted, man. About to get into week 5.
Yes, sir. And this week was actually, even though a lot of groups have been decided or teams have been qualified to move on to the next stage, this was still eventful because everybody still had a chance who qualified to lock in a position they probably thought they weren't able to lock in until this week. Over in Group B was a bit crazy because there was multiple things that could qualify a team from going from fourth place to second place. So that was
Yep.
hectic. A lot of people were paying attention to that because over in Group A, that would decide who their opponent would be in the next week for the knockout stages or the knockout rounds. But our first match here, we got for race 1, we had Belgium versus United Nations. So this one was a battle in Group B. And like I explained earlier, because of the way that the standings was set in Group B for week 5 at the time, a lot of teams in positions 3, 4, and 5 were pretty much almost tied in terms of wins or close to each other in terms of point differential. So we had a lot of factors going into these couple of races just because if your team had as many wins as the opposing team to qualify, that team that qualified may not qualify just because the fifth place team has a higher point differential.
Mm-hmm.
And if a certain team that was already qualified had lost, and another team that was probably like fourth place had won, it could bump up that team to second place, which is wild to me. If Canada and the UN win, Canada ends up in second place, which at this time Canada was in the fourth position in the standings. France would end up third, and France was in the second position at this time. UN would end up fourth, and the UN was the fifth best team in the poll standing. And then Belgium would end up fifth, which was the third best team, which off the bat right there is already going to have a lot of people in Group B on edge because now they don't know what the standings are looking like when the standings have been pretty solid for 4 weeks straight now. The second condition was if Canada and Belgium win, score difference decides the order of second place to fourth place, and the United Nations would finish in fifth. So the UN wouldn't move in terms of pole positions, but between Canada, Belgium, and France, it could shuffle the poll standings in terms of Canada's sitting in fourth place. All of a sudden now Canada might be third. France is sitting in second place. All of a sudden now France is in fourth, and then we have Belgium move up a spot to second place. Like that would change a lot of things in the landscape, and a lot of teams would have to prepare differently now for who they may face. The other two conditions were if France and Belgium win, France would end up with the second spot, so they wouldn't move. Belgium would still end up in third position, and Canada, my team, would still be in fourth place. And then the last condition out of that was if France and the United Nations win, France finishes second, so they don't move at all, and then score difference would decide third to fifth. But if that was the case, there would have been a possibility that my team, Team Canada, could have been disqualified from the knockout stages, and the UN take our spot, and Belgium just lock in that final spot as well. So a lot of things could go wrong here. For the first race, we had Belgium versus United Nations. So the wins conditions on this were crazy. So for this race, it put a lot of conditions on my team afterwards, as well as France, just because. based on who would win this race between third and fifth would decide positions between 2 to 4. And from my knowledge, from what I remember with this race, now I know it wasn't as close as I thought it was gonna be.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
from what I remember, their lineup was I knew they had Hitsiaga and Haydef, but like I said in the last recap, the best lineup I've seen them put together and produce was in week 1 when we faced United Nations. Because whatever lineup they had for that race, that was their best lineup, and I don't think they've revisited that lineup again. And I couldn't tell you why that was.
It's crazy because you even mentioned something like that because of how, like, I remember when we recorded for week 4, didn't you say something along the lines of United Nations like never went the same lineup, or
Yeah.
it was rare that they went the same lineup or something like that?
Yeah, it was almost like each week they were using different rotations. And I'm like, granted, okay, you kind of want to get everyone's feet wet, but you want to do that gradually. You want to implement that little by little, not all the time. Like if you're gonna go up against Spain and you already know Spain's probably the weakest of the group, that's when you can experiment and test and do different rotations. But you don't want to do it against the rest of the pack where you know everyone's a strong contender in your group. You probably want to bring the best roster possible and probably have different subs come in at different times of the races. So I feel like the team that they brought in for the first week, that was their super team. That was the team that they were going to be like, yeah, week 1 we're going to make a statement, and then the rest of the way we're going to do different rotations. And I guess because they ended up taking the L by us, they just took the whole rotation thing to another level and
Yeah,
probably thought with
I
it,
feel like that makes sense.
and they probably thought, okay, because by the time week 3 came around, Belgium never had a win as well. And they were probably thinking, okay, it's okay to experiment because we're also in the bottom with Belgium, and we just got to make sure we beat out Belgium and wins by the end of week 5, and we should qualify as well. And I think that kind of bit them in the end because, you know what I mean? At this point, they're going into week 5 and they only got 1 win, and Belgium now has 2. So all that experimenting didn't really help them out at all. They should have just stuck to their guns from week 5 and did little tests and little experiments along the way.
You think so?
I think so, man, because I'm telling you, even though we weren't at our best on week 1 against the United Nations was strong.
Yep.
Mind you, even though we all weren't on comms, it was only one person missing on comms. It does play a factor, but we had enough people on comms to minimize the effects of us probably not all being on comms, if you get what I mean. So
Hmm.
the fact that they were able to make it a close race in the first week means that United Nations was strong. They just needed to tune up a couple of things. And they never did that because we never saw that same roster again. Like Hitsuyaga was a threat the entire World Cup for Group B. Hayda was his running mate, but it was like every other week you'd see Hayda in and then Hayda not in. So then it's like you never had the same consistent roster. And then you didn't have the same running mates they had every week either. They had different people subbing in. So it's like, yeah, they had depth on their team, but their depth wasn't the same quality as their core four that started off their first week. And I think that was kind of detrimental to them because when I saw this race, I knew they could have done better because I saw that in week 1.
Okay, okay. I do have some notes of the match. If I could go through them.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so I know we just said that the match wasn't particularly close, but at least from what I got, it was pretty close, at least in the first 3 races.
Yep.
But by the time it got to race 4, that's when Belgium had their like point separation.
When they hit their
And I
stride.
believe, yeah, from game 4, that's basically like once Belgium took off, that was pretty much it because in game three, no, actually it was game three when they got their big win. Because in game three, Monji, Camps, Turbos, and Oni got first, second, and third, so they got a damn near sweep. And by game four, Belgium was up by 61-47, and it continued. Game five, uh, and they were trying to like fight back. I know game five hits Yaga got first, but Manji is still getting like second and stuff. So
Yep.
it's not like the team UN they didn't have any games where the whole team performed up to
No,
par because that's what they really needed to
exactly.
close the gap. And even in game six, Belgium they got the top three spots again. Going into game seven, Belgium was up 119-97. And then basically after game seven, Belgium solidified the win. So, it basically Bel- Belgium looked like they had full control of the match.
You know what I want to make a point to? You said it in week one or just before week one when we were discussing the teams in the World Cup. And you mentioned United Nations being a strong and formidable team. The only thing is you don't know how good they're going to be because they're all from different locations. And my
Hmm.
thing is, if my hypothesis is correct in me thinking that every week it was a different rotation, so they weren't at their best again since week one, do you think that's due part to them all being in different time zones in different countries? So then they were never able to keep that same lineup from week one again?
It's a very possibility because when you got people from different nations, you know, it's not the same as like for you and me, our team is filled with people in our region. So
Yeah,
if we have to maneuver to fit different times with the opponent we're going against, everybody on our team could kind of move accordingly. But
exactly.
UN, that's probably not the case because somebody might be, let's say, if Belgium had to play at like 1 p.m. or 2 p.m. their time.
Yeah,
Now, a couple people, it could be good for them for UN for that time, but half the other team might be like, nah, that's gonna be too late for us, or I don't know, like this not really the time I play and stuff like that. So it all like depends. I feel like that could definitely be a factor there.
I think that's a possibility why we didn't see the same group from week one in the current weeks to follow right after because I don't even know where half their play. Like you said, I believe Hitsuaga's from Germany, but then
Yes.
I'm not sure where Haydef is located. I'm not sure where the other teammates are located. So I think that could have played a big factor, and them not being all in the same time zone. One could be asleep while the other one still have daylight, sort of thing. So I don't know.
Yeah. I did say that I feel like that would be one of their biggest challenges. Like they have a really big advantage over certain teams, but they also have one of the biggest disadvantages, obviously that being the time zone thing. But they do have a full squad, so there's that. But who's to say how practice could go for them? Could they get everybody to the practices?
I think
I don't know.
where my mind is at right now. I just thought about this while we were talking about it. I think had the Team United Nations been in Group A instead, they might have fared a little bit better because
Are you saying that for time zone reasons?
exactly because if they're able to put together the best roster at all times, especially going against teams that are in Europe for most of the part, because your group for the most part has a lot of teams in Europe. You got Benelux, You got
Yep.
United Kingdom. You also had Europe,
Mhm.
and not
Yep.
o and you had well, no, Peru's is out east here, or out
Yeah.
west here, but, for the most part, you had a lot of teams more so in the west or sorry, in the east than you did on Group B. Group B, there was a lot of teams in, the west here. So I don't think UN had a chance to be at full strength or benefit because the main competition that they'd have to go against was out in the west. But in terms of them being out in Group A, the stronger teams that they would have to face would all probably be around the same time zone, like Benelux and Europe and the United Kingdom.
Mhm.
So I think had they been in a different group, possibly you'd see that lineup occur more often than none. I'm not saying they would do a lot better in Group A because Group A is a strong group, but I'm saying I think you would see a stronger performance each week from that team and a more consistent performance because it can put together a better team because everyone is available now.
That's true. That definitely could have played a big factor
It's
in the
almost
team's performance.
it's almost like if Canada was in Group A, or let me say this actually, if United States was in Group B and United States had to race against Canada, it's like we're all in the same time zone pretty much. We don't really have to do much
Mhm.
but wake up at a relative time to one another and we can just race at any time. We can even race
Yep.
at 9 p.m. and we'd all be good. But Team UN now, if they're in Europe, they can race at any time because they're all in Europe, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? They can race against
Mhm.
Benelux whenever they feel like if they want to do it at 9 p.m., they can because they know they're all in the same time zone region. They can do that. But when they have to race against teams like Canada, which has a different time zone for some of their races on their team, and maybe a couple of the racers are in another part of the world and they can't make that, so they're asleep, it has them go into the deeper members of their roster who may not be as strong as their core members of the roster.
Yeah.
That's just my takeaway from analyzing things.
Yeah. But all in all though, I still think UN, they still did pretty good. Like
Oh yeah, they did.
they're far from a bad team, and I feel like no matter what position they were in, they were still giving it their all. Like it didn't seem like they were like backing down.
You know what would have been a stronger team for UN if they do another if we're going to another World Cup and UN decides to put their name in the hat again. Let me see Alexander and Starmondo on Team United Nations along with Hitsiaga and Hayden.
Yeah,
I think that team would be dangerous.
I think so too. I think so too. But then, it's there. The problem with UN is they're always going to have the time zone
That's true.
difference.
That is
So you
true.
could get a whole bunch of strong racers, but if it conflicts with like practice
And
and stuff like
scheduling,
that and consistency and yeah, scheduling, that's a pretty hard hurdle to go over because
it
even
is.
for Team USA, we have a lot of people on our team,
Yep,
but that doesn't mean everybody's going to be available at the same time.
that
So
is true.
we really have to work together to get some decent practice sessions in. So I'd imagine it'd be even harder for UN.
Well, all this goes to show that your observation from the very beginning was true. It was going to be a detriment to the team all being in different time zones and different regions in the world because as we got from this one World Cup, they did not succeed as probably what they first thought they were going to do. They probably came
Hmm.
into this thinking, "Oh, we're going to do well because we have a strong group of characters on this one roster." Problem was they were all in different regions in the world, so they couldn't really come together and make it work as we saw in this World Cup.
Hmm.
But nonetheless, United Nations, they always put up a fight. It was never anytime they did race against teams in Group B. It was never a one-sided race to the point where it was you didn't even really have to watch to figure out the results. It was watchable, so I will give them that. And Belgium, gotta give it to them. They knew what time it was. They knew they had to get this win in the week because of all the conditions that were placed on teams from 2 to 5. So they got the job done. Did you have anything else you wanted to add to this?
Nah, man. All I got to say is, I enjoyed watching UN race, and
Yep.
I do hope they. I it kind of makes you wonder now that UN's players has the experience if they will try to come and enter the next World Cup,
Well, I
but
hope they
with
do.
like different teams, or like they'll actually join their region's team. Because it could be the case that maybe they,
They split
came
up.
a little later and stuff like that.
Okay.
So you never know. Shoot, for all we know, UN could be a completely different
Different
team
team, yeah.
next time.
Because United Nations is you got every nation in the world, pretty
Mm-hmm.
much. So
Yep.
who
So
knows?
it's definitely something to consider. But GG is the Belgium, man, because they definitely put on a show the last couple of weeks.
Yep,
They showed that they're a formidable team, and they just you definitely can't sleep on them, man. They could race against the best. So you
definitely.
definitely like hats off to Manji and Cam's turbos, man. The 1-2 punch of that team.
But like we've been saying after week 2, even though there was a lot of teams that were down 0-2, it was still 3 weeks. It's not over till it's over. You can still turn things around, and that's exactly what Belgium did. You know,
Hmm.
Belgium was slowly getting win by win until they were able to get in position to qualify for the knockout stages. Hats off to them because the roles pretty much reversed. It was us that was sitting in the top spot by week 2, undefeated, and arguably looking like one of the better teams in Group B, waiting to face either France or Brazil to make that claim. And then Belgium out of nowhere turned things up. And Belgium was like,
Yep.
nah, we're in this conversation too. Don't sleep on us. And I like
Yep.
that because, like I kept telling you off camera, Nano, it's like a lot of people were sleeping on Group B because there's a lot of question marks they didn't know about. And I think a lot of eyes really opened now for Team Belgium and what they're going to do in the next World Cup, who they're going to have on the roster the next time around. Are they going to be stronger? And I'm definitely excited to see them again. I wouldn't mind getting another rematch if they were in our group. I'll tell you that. Got to get my lick back.
Hey, you never know, man. You never know. So I think it's definitely a possibility. So I want to say like to ever count it out, but that's Belgium is definitely a strong team, bro. Definitely a strong team.
For the next race we got, which was race 2, this was a very so in Group A, it was only 2 teams left by this time that were undefeated, and that was Benelux and USA. And this was the race to take the person's O. And USA was looking to take Benelux's O, and Benelux was looking to take United States' O. These were 2 undefeated heavyweight boxing champions, and they wanted the bragging rights of who was the best in Group A. And
Hmm.
this was a good fight from start to finish. I caught this race right after I got out of my race. And I was on edge because I was cheerleading for Team USA because my guy Nano was racing, but Nano wasn't racing. So that made me even more on edge because I'm like, what's going on? Is USA playing around? Like they don't Nano's not even racing. What's going on? So Nano, you tell the audience what you told me because this is what I found out mid race. when I had a conversation in private on the side while this was going on, mind you.
Yeah, so yeah, I wasn't in the race uh because our team agreed that no matter what, we were gonna have, you know, these people play so they could we were gonna have certain people play because, just to give them some more play time. And, at the end of the day, I have faith in my team. So we definitely put in a lot of work. So, we wanted to put the homies hot pockets in. And I think we had it's kind of funny, bro, because our team doesn't really sub like that, but
Yeah.
this is the week where we subbed the most.
Okay. So you guys were
So like
really
we use
utilizing
all
the
of our
subbing
subs.
system.
Yeah, so the way we had it is to where we were gonna have Hot Pockets play as the trickster and Pro play as the brawler. But uh because we wanted to get them some more playing time, especially
Yeah.
against a really good team. Now Caleb and Woming Angel are there too. So I still, we all agreed that it was still like a solid squad.
Yep.
And the reason why we use the subs is because uh if it was up to our team, or if it was up to like Hot Pockets and Pro, if they wanted to, we would have just like let them race all of the races. But they actually, I know Hot Pockets asked me, he was like, "Hey Nano, can you race in Candy Kingdom the first map?
Yeah.
Because I'm not as
Comfortable.
confident on that map." And I was like, "Sure, I'll do it." And that's why I raced the first race and then subbed out immediately after that race. No matter what place I got, even if I got first place, I think I got fourth place that match. So I actually didn't do too bad. But even if I had gotten first place, I was gonna sub out regardless.
Okay.
And I know Pro, he felt that way on like two specific maps.
Yeah.
So when I subbed out after the first map, that was one sub that we used, and we could only use four. And then we subbed Pro out because on the second map, Riley's Mind, he didn't feel as confident, or maybe he just felt like uh somebody else on a brawler on that specific map could probably like do better.
Yeah.
And he let Cosmic, he subbed in Cosmic. So that was two subs. So right now, Cosmic is in the Riley's Mind match. And then after that match, we sub back in um Pro after the Riley's Mind match. So that was three subs we use in in three races. And then we let them race the rest of the races. And then the Pirates map, I
Mm-hmm.
know Pro wasn't really confident on that map either. So we used our last sub and brought in Cosmic. And from there on, Cosmic raced the last two races because we used up all of our subs.
Okay.
So, we did a lot of like swapping and everything, to help the team out. And, the team, we actually didn't do pretty bad though. Like
Then
we didn't end up winning, but our team still put in work because I believe we only lost by 8 points.
yeah, 148 to 140. And if you guys didn't know, the last match's score was 161 127 in favor of Belgium. But my thoughts when you told me mid race that you weren't racing, And having seen the results at the end of everything, I was like, damn, the fact that it was literally what happened last week, right? When you guys were racing Europe without Maxi racing.
Hmm.
It was literally
Yeah.
the same deal. You guys were strong enough that you weren't even racing and you guys had it close. And then my
Hmm.
thoughts were like, well, damn, Nano didn't even race. Although Benelux got the dub and they claim the title as the best team in Group A, are they technically the best team in Group A if United States wasn't at their best? Would we see a different team winning Group A if Nano was playing? Those were my thoughts after that race.
Yeah, I can see why you say that, but even though that is a big question mark, at the end of the day, Benelux did what they had to do. They got the W, so
Oh, most
you know
definitely.
we definitely can't really harp on that. But you see, that's why USA, we know we're making the playoffs, so we're definitely gonna try our hardest to make it to the finals and get that run back. Because I'm for sure this time I will be in the races.
Yeah, man. I can't be on the
So
sidelines
we'll
watching
see,
that
man.
again and be like, "Where's Nano? Where's Nano? What's going on? What y'all do
Yeah.
to Nano?"
It's funny because Angel Angel and this girl Katie, she was like, we were talking after the match, and
Yeah.
like Katie was like talking with us, and she's like, yo, like what happened to Nano? Like Nano should have been in it. I thought that was funny, but we had to let her know, man. We was like, hey, it's all good, man. You know, we're still second place,
Mm-hmm.
which is really good. We got some of our other team some experience versus a strong team. We only lost by 8 points, so nobody, you know, we still overall did pretty good. Like Benelux had to fight for that W.
Man, just tell the truth. Y'all was ducking us. Y'all was ducking Canada.
Yeah, that's exactly what was happening,
Yeah,
man.
man. You wanted that. You didn't want to. Once you saw Reach put in that work, you was like, "Nah, I don't know about that no more."
Yeah, man. The reach scared me off, man. I was like, whoo, I dodged the bullet, man. But hey, man, it's but don't worry, man. We gonna put in work to make it to the finals.
Oh, I
Get
believe
that run
that.
back.
There was one thing that was running in my mind that week when that race had finished, and I wanted to ask you, but I never had the chance. And I guess now is the best time to ask you since we're here talking and we can do this. What would okay? So you know the result of the race. You know you guys lose, and you know it was a close one, and
Mm-hmm.
you didn't race in particular. So I wanted to
Mm-hmm.
know what were your thoughts if you had raced in that race? Do you think the outcome would have been different or would have been the same?
I mean, it's really hard to tell because I was playing the trickster role,
Yeah.
and Hot Pockets was in my place on the trickster role. And if we're being honest, he actually didn't do too bad. So it's a possibility that the numbers may have been a little bit different, but it's really easy to say that from the outside looking in when you're not racing.
Mhm.
Because realistically, we don't know what the outcome could have been. Shit, for all I know, I could have been in instead of Hot Pockets, and we could have done worse. You never know.
That is true. People have off nights, man.
So, you know, it's a possibility that they could have been different, but at the end of the day, we never know. And the match happened, and I don't regret nothing we did in that match. If anything, I'm actually glad about the stuff that happened in that match because there are actually stuff that happened in that match that didn't go as planned, but the match was still that close.
Are we talking about the lobby situation?
Well, yo, it's funny you say that because I actually forgot. I forgot that was even. I forgot about that. I was only just talking about the particular in like certain races and stuff. But I won't divulge too much information because that's stuff that me and my team talks about within the group. But it's I'd say all in all, I'm still I'm still happy with how we performed. Being the possible it's the arguably number one team in Group A, and we only lost by 8 points.
Yep, that's solid for
And
sure.
I wasn't even racing. I only raced one time.
Mhm.
I mean, who knows, man? Who knows?
That's crazy. That's why I said it's literally the same thing when you guys race against Europe.
It was because Maxi didn't race,
Exactly.
and we only beat them by 4 points.
So it's almost like a what if scenario.
100%.
And it's crazy how we had them back to back in weeks from the same group as well. And then one of the teams was part of it twice.
Yeah, we were on both ends, so we understand.
But in terms of the
But hey,
next, yeah, go ahead.
shout out before we go on. Shout out to Benelux because Benelux actually they did really good, man.
Oh yeah, most
Nalisi,
definitely.
Cedric, May,
They were going crazy.
and Hoodie, they did real good, man. They did real good.
Man,
So
Hoodie was
I'm
going crazy
I'm
there.
he was, and it's funny because I know the first map, like Caleb went crazy, man. He
He
got the
did.
first on the Mowgli. So it's I think if we meet up again in the finals, I think it's definitely going to be a match everybody wants to see, especially with 16 races.
Hey
Going
man,
crazy, man.
hey man, Caleb, you better show up like last time, man. I can't be in the chat talking about where's Caleb at.
Nah, man. Hey, Caleb played amazing, bro. He actually ended up getting more points and beating May out on the speedsters, which is
Mm.
extremely rare.
Yeah, because we've been saying all along that May is probably the best speedster in this entire World Cup.
Yeah, May, Romandra. I usually put them on like even playing field.
So the fact that
So
Caleb edged out May, is eye opener for any of the teams out there in the knockout stages.
hmm pretty much, man, pretty much. But like I said, I'm happy with the results. So we the team learned a lot from that match. So I have no problem with anything that happened.
That's fair. But the next race we had none other than myself, Team Canada versus France. And like we said earlier, this race had a lot riding on it because all of the all of the factors that could influence the standings in Group B and ultimately shake up the lineups for different matches going into the knockout stages. So for our team, we were looking to get the dub because we knew if we beat France, it'll potentially move us into maybe the third spot or the second spot. It at best we could probably move up to 3, beating France by a certain amount of points. Because Belgium won their match and qualified, it allowed us and Belgium to qualify, and the United Nations got eliminated going into the knockout stages. For Team Canada's match, however, going into this match against France, if we won by more than 10 points against France, the standings of Group B would be Belgium in second, France in third, and us still in fourth place. If Canada wins by 36 or more points, Belgium in second, Canada in third, and France in fourth place. And then the last was if Canada wins by 64 more points, we'd end up being second place, Belgium in third, and France in fourth. Obviously, mathematically, getting 64 points or more against a tough team like France was out of the question. However, we already knew 10 points was possibly doable against France. We didn't know how much 36 would be doable, but we had our eyes set out on getting 36 or more points because we thought, you know what? Maybe we could get 36 more points than France as long as we get maybe a couple of sweeps and we're able to keep a lead. Maybe uh, we can get the 36 or more points and shake up Group B and have us going into third place, going into the knockout stages. So that was our goal all along. The, the bar was set for us getting 36 and the floor was getting 10. So, man, sometimes you have a great plan or you have something that you want to execute because it's a great idea, and sometimes it just does not go the way you want it to. And boy, oh boy,
Okay.
was this that same thing. So, like I discussed in the last recap with you, I did make some changes to our roster to better benefit us going into week 5. So, for the longest time, for all of you who've been watching Team Canada race in the World Cup, I've been sitting on the brawler class and I've been having some ebbs and flows. Some weeks I'm very solid, and then some weeks I'm just average. For the most part, my performance has been middle of the pack. So I'm doing what I'm supposed to do for our team to get enough points. However, going into week 4, after our race against Belgium, I decided, you know what? I'm gonna get off Brawler and I'm gonna let Matt jump up to Brawler and me take the Speedster class. Just because I've seen Matt struggle with the Speedster, but I've also seen him have some moments where he actually shined as a speedster. So I said, okay, if I can get Matt on an average class like Brawler, judging by his performances, he won't be in last place like that. And knowing me, I could probably take a few last places, but I know I won't sit in last place a lot of the time because I'm solid on speedster. That was actually one of my first classes I mained when I first started the game. So I've always been solid as a speedster. So going into this race against France, I was doing a sub between myself and Jack, our team captain. And I made sure to take all the tracks that took more skill so that Jack can still run on tracks that didn't take as much finesse in order to pull off a higher pole position for our team to get more points in the standings. So it was a great idea, great plan on paper. Problem was throughout the race or the races, we were struggling. And I can point to a few things in particular because I actually have notes on this. I wrote them down. So, one, the very first thing, friendly fire. The friendly fire in all
Man,
these
friendly fire was
races,
going crazy, man.
yes, sir. The friendly fire in these races were so bad, it was almost like we were racing amongst ourselves. It was horrible.
Mm.
The other team did not have to stun us or go out of their way to stun us because we were doing a good job of that ourselves. Mind
Do
you,
you feel like,
yeah,
not to interrupt, but do you feel like in this race particular, it was worse than any other match you guys have played previously?
yes.
Okay.
This was possibly, I mean, nothing is as bad as being in first place and getting friendly fired and then end up losing the race. That hurts. as a
Hmm.
as a
Most
Triton
definitely.
as a Triton main, that hurts. But that was only for one race I can point to in that series of last week. But this week, it was every race. Too much friendly
Okay.
fire. And that is what cost us a lot of races or a lot of spots in terms of finishing because we would be in, some of us would be in great positions and then all of a sudden the friendly fire would knock one of us out and push us all the way in the back. And that was just one person on our team in a top 4 spot instead of maybe being 2, which would help us on points in terms of when we finish against France. A lot of that friendly fire came from Matt, actually, which was crazy.
Okay.
So,
He's the one who he's the most new. He's played with the team the least, right?
yes, but I don't even want to just accumulate that to him just being new to the team because it's been a common denominator since week 3 against Brazil.
Okay.
But the friendly fire hasn't been this prevalent since this race in particular, where it got even worse to the point where there was so much friendly fire, one, that even though Matt was succeeding, he was the only one getting in top 4 positions. Reach was struggling to get in
Okay.
the top 4. Crusher was even playing that great. And he's been a solid staple for us in most of our races. He's always in the top 3 spot. So if I'm on Speedster and I'm not looked to be in a top 4 spot for most of the time, and everybody else is in the bottom 4, that means our team is not getting any points. So right out the bat,
Mhm.
our plan is already failing because one, I'm not in the top 4, Reach is not in the top 4, Crusher's not even in the top 4, and Matt is not even in the top 3 position. For some
I
races,
see.
for some races he did finish 3rd, and props to him. The problem was it was in a failing effort because none of that helped with the rest of the team being in the bottom 4. Crusher not being
Mhm.
on his game, I don't know if that has to attribute to us not being able to practice a lot, right?
Yeah.
The more you
It's
practice,
it probably plays a big factor. I'm not gonna
exactly.
lie.
I believe so too. The more you're
I
able to
honestly, I
practice,
think if you're honestly, if at this point, if at this point in the World Cup, if you're not practicing or your team's not efficient with practicing, you're basically just shooting yourself in the foot.
exactly. For me, an ideal situation after losing to Brazil would have been our team doing at least 3 practices together, everyone being there at least 3 times a week
Hmm.
because all our races have been on Sunday since week 1. So, having at least 3 practices throughout the week before Sunday would have gave us enough time to gel as a group and know our strengths and weaknesses and know how we play, different styles. So,
Hmm.
there's a lot of things that were coupled in together that just soured our experience for this race because even though we had a plan in mind, we couldn't execute it because a lot of things just weren't going our way. Crusher actually had a bad week. Even though Matt had a great week, he was friendly firing, so the rest of the team didn't have a great week. Even though I played solid as a speedster, it didn't matter because only Matt was doing a good job in most of the races, while Reach and Crusher were kind of struggling. So
Yeah.
even though we had great plans for this week, none of them fell through, or all of them fell through because we didn't do enough to make sure we can execute them to the best of our abilities. And that all I think stems from practice.
Hmm. Yeah, the communication and the friendly firing and stuff like that.
Mm-mm.
You have to really play with your team
To avoid that.
in order to, yeah. So like it doesn't really benefit your team if you just kind of don't practice and then you just show up the day
Exactly.
of because you're gonna be really rusty or
Mhm.
it's not. Yeah, you could hop on for a little bit before the race, but it's not the
It's
same
not
as
the
like
same.
having a game plan. Running through the
E
tracks with the team,
exactly.
trying to find characters per class and see who benefits the most or
For the best
you
optimal
know
runs, things like that.
Mhm. Yep, stuff like that. Like for you guys, since you guys don't have like a full roster, what you guys could have done is you could have had people like let's say if you guys are gonna have a session, you could
We could
for
have
every
invited Spain to
class
practice with us.
that too. But my team, we don't really like doing that for particular reasons. But for your team, since you guys only had 5 people, what you guys could have done is like had everybody run the same class and you guys run through all of the tracks and see what kind of information you guys could get with that class.
That too.
And then so you guys could all run different brawlers and see what kind of results you get on each maps.
Yep.
And then you could, find out what brawler would be best or most optimal for your team to run for whoever your brawler is on those maps. And then same thing for every other class, So it's a lot of stuff that you could do, but honestly, it all stems from practice. Like you would have to do that in practice, and if your team's not practicing, you're basically a sitting duck at
Yep.
that point.
Like one of the things I expressed to you for the last recap was I was very adamant on having us utilize optimal builds. Like we don't have to particularly use the strongest racers. It's just racers that'll get us by enough to where our team is synergized. So like if I know everybody on my team is cloaked, and let's say for instance I'm a Triton, I know I can bust that tidal wave every time because I know my team won't be affected. That's an optimal team build. The same way when you guys were racing against Europe and you guys had Caleb as Jafar so he can hold back the other team while you guys were up ahead, and they made sure you were the front runner because you had the auto drive for Oswald. That's an optimal team
Hmm.
build. That's something you figure out in practice. But the fact that we didn't practice enough to where we can come up with optimal builds like that is a shame because for certain for certain teammates, I was able to come up with optimal builds for certain tracks because we was going to be in the same race together. And I said, okay, look, you benefit by being this character more because we won't clash as much. And that means we're both going to do a better job in holding positions because we're not going to be clashing as much. But
Hmm.
if you're like, for instance, if you're going to pick a character who has slowdown, but your teammates don't have much defense, what do you think that's going to do for your teammates, not just the enemy team? You're going to slow down the enemy
Yeah.
team, yes, but your teammates will also be affected. You might pull ahead, yes, but you're also being a detriment to your team. See, the reason why Pete was such a strong pick when me and Crusher were using it on Andes was because me and Crusher had to kind of work it out during the race, but figured out it was a strong combo because as long as Crusher was in front of me and he was able to throw pumpkins, I was able to maintain my boost and top speed while keeping the other team behind us because they cannot pass me because I'm using his charged ability. So now you have separation between us and the other team. The reason why Reach did so well in that match as well is because she was Jack Sparrow, someone who has a lot of defense that can also overtake or pass me without being affected by my special. And because Jack was a
Hmm.
speedster, we didn't really have to worry too much about Jack because he was most so going to be in the bottom four anyways. So even though he was in that pack with the rest of the team, as long as we had the 1, 2, 3 position, which we did, we wouldn't be affected by points. So things like
Hmm.
that shows great synergy and it shows great optimization in terms of a team build. But we never had that since that week.
Yeah. Hmm. And that kind of really goes to show like when it comes to like how important practice is, because
Exactly.
like there's even okay, the fact that you guys, we already stress how important practice is, but the fact that you guys have only 5 racers means that you would want to
To practice
practice
more.
as much as you guys can to
Exactly.
take advantage of the shortcomings of having only 5 racers. Because you guys are going to need all of the information you could get. And plus, practicing with just you and one other person isn't, it's, you can find data, but realistically, it's not the same as if you had all of your team there so you guys could
Yep.
accumulate the data that's found. Do you okay, so do you feel like, is there any, from the match that you guys had against France, is there any positivity or silver lining?
I think the positivity I could pull from, I wouldn't just say the match against France. I say overall, having played throughout these group stages, is that I made a new group of friends that I'd love to
Mhm.
run in another tournament with, but we got to practice. Otherwise, I don't know.
Mhm.
It all starts with practice. Like, I want to be competitive. I got a competitive spirit. I don't want to just settle. I'm not the settling type in competitions. Like I told you before
Yeah.
week 1 even started, like, I'm here to play. That's why I entered my name.
Yeah,
And
most
I
definitely.
came in here with that idea thinking that's what it was gonna be all about, but it wasn't like that. So, I wanna say the one pot the well, not just one positive, but a positive from this so far as I made some good friends that I know I can play later on in the game with, especially this season. But also, you know, I don't think as a team we had any issues with each other, which is good. I wanna say
That
the
is good.
I wanna
That's
say
very good.
that the only issue we had as a team was that we didn't practice. So I know for a
Mhm.
fact if we're able to take the time to sit down together and put out a schedule so we can practice together, I know we'd be a lot better team. And I know we have strong team members because I race against them sometimes. And I know because we're all strong in our own right, that if we took the time to practice, we could be a way more formidable team than we advertised in the group stage.
Mhm.
So we didn't do you guys, the viewers, and our competitors that did race us from week 3 onwards a solid by coming in unprepared. And that's me keeping it a buck.
Yeah. But that's pretty good, man. I mean, at least you guys are still in the knockout round, so I think that speaks a lot too.
Yes, sir. You know I wasn't gonna just enter the tournament and not make it to the next round. Like, come on, man.
Shit, I know, man. I'm about to say, man, what happened to Team Canada, man? Yeah, I had a. You guys actually have a really solid group too. So
We do. Just gotta practice.
yeah.
We might have to have Nano schedule our practices because
Hey man, I'm your guy, man. Team USA always be in the lab.
man, I don't know how you got your team to commit to 4 hours on practice, but if you can do that kind of magic with our team, who knows?
Damn man, 5, but you know who's counting?
That's an extra hour. That's crazy, but that's what I mean. That just shows you
Yeah,
right there, they're willing to do everything they can to get the dub, and I don't think we were doing that. And,
yeah.
the better teams won the weeks that we lost because of that. So for this score, France ended up getting the win, obviously, and it was 156 to 132. So it wasn't such a bad loss. We did only lose by 24 points, but that wasn't our goal. Our goal was to win and to win by 36 and more points. So us losing by 24, we were way off the mark. But shout outs to France because I definitely knew there was a strong team from the beginning. And by them beating us did hurt me particularly, but By them beating us, it just solidified my sentiments even more when I said, I wanted France from day one. I told you this. From day one, I was like, "Man, I want France. I don't care about anybody else. I want France." And then I got my wish, and we wasn't even prepared.
Shit, didn't you say Reach wanted friends too?
Yeah, Reach was talking the most before we even got to Brazil. Reach was talking the most. I asked Reach. I was like, "Reach, between Brazil or France, who do you think is the biggest threat that we got to race?" She said, "France." And I said, "Yeah, me too." She's like, "But I want France. I want the way she said it. She's like, I want all the smoke." I'm paraphrasing. I want all the smoke.
Mm-hmm.
I want France. I want to race them bad. I was like, damn. She's like, but I think we're confident. She's like, we're confident. Like, I'm confident enough that we can take France. And when I heard that, I was like, man, Reach must got something special for France. I can't wait. And I was hyped up every week, even though we was losing to Belgium, even though we were losing to Brazil. Week 5 came, I was like, okay, it's France. Reach been saying she wanted France. Reach sounds overly confident, even got me hyped up to race France. Now I'm gonna see what's popping. And it was a dud. Come on, Reach. You can't do me like that, man.
Damn, man.
Thanks for watching. Please leave a like and subscribe. I'll see you at the next one.